For years, corrupt cops believed their K-9s made them untouchable. Every arrest was theater, every victim a reminder of their control, every complaint buried before it saw daylight. They unleashed fear with fangs, certain no one would ever fight back. Then one morning, they spotted a young black mother walking home from the hospital, her newborn nestled in her arms. To them, she looked fragile, easy to break, another powerless target for their brutality. But they have no idea she's an FBI special agent, her silence masking years of investigations into men exactly like them. When her calm refusal to exit without cause leads to the drawing of a weapon, they unknowingly unleash forces that will upend their world in ways they can't yet imagine. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The autumn breeze carried the sweet scent of fallen leaves as Naomi Carter walked down Cedar Street. Her newborn son Elijah nestled safely in her arms. Her body ached from childbirth 3 days ago, but her heart was full of joy. The hospital bracelet still circled her wrist, a reminder of their shared journey. "Look at you, my beautiful boy," she whispered, adjusting the soft blue blanket around his tiny face. Elijah's eyes were closed, his breaths coming in gentle puffs against her chest. His perfect fingers curled into tiny fists as he slept. The walk home wasn't long, just 6 blocks from St. Mary's Hospital. But Naomi took her time. Each step was deliberate, careful. Her body was still tender, but she had insisted on walking. After 3 days in a hospital room, she needed fresh air and sunshine. "Almost home, little one," she murmured, pausing to rest against a brick wall. The morning sun warmed her face as she watched Elijah's peaceful expression. His skin was still so new, so soft. The nurses had said he was one of the calmest newborns they'd seen. "You're my little miracle." A car engine roared behind her, tires screeching against pavement. Naomi turned, startled by the sudden noise. A police cruiser had jumped the curb, its front wheels on the sidewalk. 2 officers burst out, hands already on their weapons. "Don't move!" the older officer shouted. His nameplate read, "Donnelly." His face was red with anger, though Naomi couldn't understand why. "You match the description of a shoplifter from the mini-mart." "There must be some mistake," Naomi said calmly, despite her racing heart. She held Elijah closer, turning slightly to keep him shielded. "I just left the hospital with my newborn." "Shut up." The younger officer, Taylor, cut her off. His hand twitched near his gun. "Put the bundle down and put your hands where we can see them." Naomi's throat went dry. "This is my baby. Please, he's only 3 days old." "Release the K-9s!" Donnelly barked into his radio. The back door of the cruiser flew open. Everything seemed to slow down. Naomi saw the dogs charging, their teeth bared. She heard screams from somewhere, a woman on a nearby porch, someone with a phone camera. But all she could think about was Elijah. Naomi turned her back to the dogs, curling her body around her son. The first bite came to her lower back, tearing through her jacket. She gritted her teeth against the pain, keeping her arms locked around Elijah. "Stop! She has a baby!" A woman's voice cut through the chaos. Through tears of pain, Naomi saw her. A black woman on the sidewalk, phone raised high. "You're going to kill that baby!" Another bite ripped into Naomi's arm. She dropped to her knees, but refused to loosen her grip on Elijah. His frightened cries pierced the air, mixing with the barking and shouting. "Oh my God! Are you getting this?" A young man's voice trembled as he filmed. "They're letting the dogs attack a mother and her baby." Blood ran down Naomi's arms, soaking into her sleeves. The dogs kept coming, encouraged by their handlers' shouts. She could feel their hot breath, hear their snarling inches from her head. But she made herself into a human shield, protecting Elijah with every ounce of strength she had. "Please," she gasped between waves of pain. "My baby. Please stop." But the officers didn't call off the dogs. Donnelly's face showed only contempt as he watched, while Taylor looked uncertain but didn't intervene. Through the haze of pain, Naomi felt something warm on her chest. Elijah had been grazed, a small cut on his cheek from one of the dog's claws. The sight of his blood made something snap inside her. "He's bleeding!" she screamed, her voice raw with fury and fear. "You're hurting my baby!" More phones appeared, recording the scene. The woman who'd shouted earlier, Naomi would later learn her name was Tasha Green, had moved closer, her voice rising above the chaos. "Somebody call 911! Real police, not these monsters!" The college student with the phone, Eric Hall, was shaking but kept filming. "I'm streaming this live," he announced loudly. "Everyone's going to see what you're doing." The dogs continued their assault. Naomi's vision blurred, but she focused on Elijah's face. His cries grew weaker, and terror seized her heart. Was he getting enough air in her tight embrace? But loosening her hold meant exposing him to the dogs. Blood dripped onto the sidewalk beneath her. Her legs gave out, and she slumped to the ground, still curled protectively around her son. The concrete scraped her cheek, but she barely felt it through the searing pain of the dog bites. "That's enough!" Taylor finally called out, his voice cracking. "Call them off!" But Donnelly was lost in his power trip, watching with cold satisfaction as the dogs continued their attack. "She's resisting!" he shouted, though Naomi hadn't moved except to protect Elijah. The world started to fade around the edges. Naomi's arms trembled with the effort of holding Elijah safe. She could hear more voices now, a crowd gathering. Someone was on the phone with emergency services. Phones recorded from every angle. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered to Elijah, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Mommy's got you. Mommy's not letting go." Her body was giving out, but her arms remained locked around her son. As darkness crept into her vision, Naomi collapsed fully onto the blood-stained sidewalk. But even unconscious, she never loosened her grip on Elijah. Her body remained curled around him, a mother's last line of defense against the brutality of the world. Officer Taylor and Donnelly dragged Naomi through the precinct doors, her feet barely touching the ground. Blood dripped from her torn clothing, leaving a trail across the polished floor. Her arms still cradled Elijah, though they shook with exhaustion and pain. "Look what the dogs dragged in," a desk sergeant called out, prompting scattered laughter from nearby officers. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as they forced her toward a metal bench. Naomi's legs buckled, and she collapsed onto the cold seat. Every movement sent waves of agony through her bite-marked body. But she kept Elijah close, checking his face again. The small cut on his cheek had stopped bleeding, but his eyes were wide with fear. "Shh, baby," she whispered, trying to comfort him despite her own pain. "We're going to be okay." Donnelly strutted to his desk, chest puffed out like a rooster. He high-fived another officer while Taylor settled into his own chair, looking slightly less certain. The younger cop kept glancing at Naomi's wounds, then quickly looking away. "Better get that report started," Donnelly announced loudly, cracking his knuckles over his keyboard. "Let's see. Suspect displayed aggressive behavior when approached by officers. How's that sound, Taylor?" Taylor nodded weakly. "Yeah, sure." "Oh, this is good," Donnelly continued, typing with exaggerated flair. "Subject refused multiple verbal commands and demonstrated hostile resistance, necessitating K-9 intervention." He looked around proudly. "That's how you cover your ass, rookie." More officers gathered around, offering suggestions for the report. Each lie they added made Naomi's blood boil hotter. "Don't forget to mention she was endangering the infant," someone called out. Good one, Donnelly laughed. We were protecting that baby from her erratic behavior. Naomi's hand trembled as she reached for her purse, which had somehow stayed on her shoulder through the attack. The movement sent fresh pain through her ravaged arms, but she kept going. Several officers tensed, hands moving to their weapons. Slowly, Taylor barked. Keep those hands where we can see them. With deliberate care, Naomi withdrew her hand. But instead of whatever threat they expected, she held a small leather wallet. Blood smeared the surface as she flipped it open. The gold badge caught the harsh precinct lighting, throwing reflections across suddenly pale faces. The letters FBI stood out in bold relief. The room went completely still. An officer's coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. No one moved to clean it up. Donnelly's smirk melted away like ice in summer. His fingers froze over his keyboard, the half-finished false report glowing accusingly on his screen. That's... Taylor's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. That's got to be fake. Special Agent Naomi Carter, she said, her quiet voice carrying in the stunned silence. Currently assigned to the Public Corruption and Civil Rights Division. Each word was precise, despite her pain. Would you like to verify my credentials with the Bureau? Officers began backing away from Donnelly's desk as if it were radioactive. The earlier bravado evaporated, replaced by the sudden realization of what they'd done, and to whom they'd done it. Now wait a minute, Donnelly stammered, his face going from red to gray. This is all just a misunderstanding. We had a report of a shoplifter. Save it, Naomi cut him off. Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Every second of your assault on a federal agent and her infant son was recorded by multiple witnesses. Your body cameras too, I assume? She smiled thinly. Unless they were conveniently turned off? Taylor's hand unconsciously moved to his camera, which was very much on. His expression suggested he was calculating exactly how many years in federal prison that footage might cost him. Heavy footsteps approached from the hallway. Sergeant Bill Kearns appeared, his bulk filling the doorway. He took in the scene, the blood on the floor, the injured woman, the silent officers, and finally, the FBI badge still gleaming in Naomi's hand. "What's going on here?" he demanded, though his eyes said he already knew. The slight tremor in his usually commanding voice betrayed his understanding of just how bad this was. "Sergeant Kearns," Naomi acknowledged him with a slight nod. "Your officers just unleashed K-9 units on a federal agent without warning, cause, or provocation. They allowed the dogs to continue attacking even after seeing I was protecting an infant." She shifted Elijah gently, showing the cut on his cheek. "They injured my 3-day-old son." Kearns's jaw clenched. He was already seeing the headlines, the lawsuits, the federal investigation that would tear his precinct apart. "I'm sure we can handle this professionally," he began, reaching for his practiced diplomatic tone. "These things are always more complicated than they appear." 10 minutes, Naomi interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. Blood still dripped from her arm onto the floor as she spoke. "That's all it takes for a career to end. One phone call to my supervisor, one email to Internal Affairs, one press conference." Her eyes moved from face to face, memorizing each one. 10 minutes. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the usual background noise of the precinct, ringing phones, radio chatter, shuffling papers, seemed to die away. Every officer in the room stood frozen, understanding that their comfortable world of impunity had just shattered. Elijah whimpered softly, and Naomi adjusted her hold, wincing at the movement. Her wounds still bled, her body screamed for medical attention, but her eyes never wavered. She had spent years building cases against corrupt officials. She knew how the system worked, and how to break it. Kearns opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in his career, he had no play to make, no strings to pull, no favors to call in. This wasn't some local complaint he could bury in paperwork. This was federal, and it was personal. The sound of Naomi's blood dripping onto the floor echoed in the terrible silence. 10 minutes. That's all it would take. The precinct's first aid room smelled of antiseptic and fear. A paramedic carefully cleaned the deep puncture wounds on Naomi's arms while she sat on an examination table, still holding Elijah close, despite the medic's gentle attempts to take him for examination. "Ma'am, we really should check the baby thoroughly," the paramedic, Sarah, said softly. Her kind eyes showed genuine concern, unlike the hostile stares from the officers outside. "I'll hold him while you do it," Naomi replied firmly. Her FBI training had taught her to trust no one, especially not here. Not now. She shifted Elijah slightly so Sarah could examine him, revealing the angry red scratch on his perfect cheek. Sarah dabbed the cut with antiseptic and applied a tiny butterfly bandage. "He's lucky it wasn't worse," she murmured, her hands gentle but her voice tight with controlled anger. "Those dogs—" "Yeah," Naomi said shortly. She didn't want to think about how close it had been. If she'd been a fraction slower in covering Elijah— The door burst open, and Daniel Carter rushed in, his face ashen. "Naomi! Oh, God! Naomi!" He crossed the room in 2 strides, carefully embracing his wife and son while trying to avoid her injuries. His eyes widened at the sight of the deep bites being cleaned and bandaged. "I'm okay," Naomi assured him, though her voice shook slightly. It was harder to maintain her professional facade with Daniel here. "We're both okay." Daniel touched the bandage on Elijah's cheek with trembling fingers. "They said there was a police incident, but this—" His teacher's vocabulary failed him. "How could they—" "Sir, please step back while I finish these bandages," Sarah interrupted professionally, though not unkindly. She continued cleaning and wrapping Naomi's wounds, documenting each injury with clinical precision. Through the partially open door, they could hear voices in the hallway. Sergeant Kearns was speaking in urgent, hushed tones to Officers Donnelly and Taylor. "Wasn't supposed to be there," Kearns whispered harshly. "The schedule showed—" Naomi's head snapped up, her FBI instincts suddenly screaming. "The schedule? What schedule?" She caught Daniel's eye, and he nodded slightly. He'd heard it too. The whispered conversation cut off abruptly as quick footsteps approached. A woman in a sharp business suit strode into the room, her heels clicking authoritatively on the linoleum. "I'm Carla Mendez, civil rights attorney," she announced, her dark eyes taking in the scene with professional fury. "And this is absolutely unacceptable." Carla moved to Naomi's side, her presence somehow filling the small room. "I want all injury documentation sent to my office immediately," she ordered Sarah, who nodded. "And I need to see the body camera footage right now." "The footage isn't available," Officer Taylor said from the doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Excuse me?" Carla's voice could have frozen hell. "Technical malfunction," Taylor muttered. "Both cameras failed during the incident." "Both cameras?" Carla's laugh was sharp and humorless. "What an amazing coincidence! And I suppose the dash cam failed too?" Taylor's silence was answer enough. "Fortunately," Carla continued with dangerous sweetness, "I've already obtained copies of civilian videos from 3 different angles. Would you like to see them? The part where your K9 units attack an unarmed mother and her newborn is particularly clear." Taylor retreated quickly, leaving the door open. Through it, they could see Kearns in his office, making call after call with increasing agitation. Sarah finished bandaging the last of Naomi's wounds. "You need antibiotics," she said firmly. "Dog bites have a high infection risk, and these should be properly stitched at a hospital." "I'll make sure she gets proper medical care," Carla assured her. "But first, we need to document everything." She pulled out her phone and began photographing Naomi's injuries. This won't go away with a simple cover-up. Daniel paced the small room, his normal calm demeanor cracking. "I don't understand," he said. "Even for them, this is extreme. To attack a woman clearly just leaving the hospital? With a newborn?" "That's just it," Naomi said slowly, pieces clicking into place in her mind. "Kearns said I wasn't supposed to be there. He mentioned a schedule." She looked at Daniel, her expression hardening. "They knew when I was being discharged. They knew my route home. This wasn't random." "Are you saying—" Daniel's face paled further. "This was planned," Carla finished grimly. "But they didn't know who you were." "Or they did," Naomi countered. "And that was the point." She shifted Elijah to her other arm, wincing at the movement. "I've been investigating police corruption cases for the Bureau, several of them connected to this precinct. Through the door, they could see more officers arriving, huddling with Kearns in tense conversation. The atmosphere in the precinct had shifted from arrogant to anxious. The conveniently failed body cameras, Carla mused, the targeting of a specific time and route, the immediate attempt to craft a false narrative. She shook her head. This reeks of an inside job. Daniel moved closer to Naomi and Elijah, his protective instincts in overdrive. "We need to get you both to a real hospital," he insisted. "Somewhere safe. First, we need to—" Naomi began, but her words were cut off by a commotion outside. Several high-ranking officers had arrived, along with what appeared to be a police union lawyer. They clustered around Kearns's office, faces grim. "They're circling the wagons," Carla observed. "We should move quickly before evidence starts disappearing." Naomi watched the activity through the door, her investigator's mind cataloging every detail, every whispered conversation, every nervous glance in her direction. The pieces were forming a picture she didn't like. She turned to Daniel, her voice low but intense. "This wasn't a mistake," she said. "They came for me. The only question is, who gave the order?" Late that night, the Carter home was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the baby monitor. Daniel stood over Elijah's crib, carefully adjusting the blanket around their sleeping son. The tiny bandage on the baby's cheek seemed to glow accusingly in the dim light of the nursery. In their bedroom, Naomi lay rigid on her back, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the dogs lunging toward Elijah. Her bandaged arms throbbed with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of the morning's horror. The painkillers the hospital had prescribed sat untouched on her nightstand. She needed her mind clear. Daniel entered their bedroom quietly, his footsteps careful on the hardwood floor. "He's finally settled," he whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "How are you holding up?" "I keep seeing it," Naomi admitted, her voice tight. "Over and over. The way they didn't even hesitate, Daniel. They just released the dogs." On a woman carrying a newborn, Daniel reached for her hand in the darkness, careful to avoid her injuries. The video's everywhere now. Eric, the student who filmed it, he posted it online an hour ago. It's already gone viral. Naomi grabbed her phone from the nightstand, wincing at the movement. The video had over 1 million views already. The comments section was exploding with outrage. Local news stations were picking up the story. "There's a crowd gathering at the precinct," Daniel continued, scrolling through his own phone. "Protesters, signs saying, 'Justice for Agent Carter' and 'Protect Black Mothers.'" He paused, reading. "The police union just released a statement defending the officer's actions as following standard procedure when confronted with a suspicious individual." "Suspicious individual?" Naomi repeated bitterly. "A woman in hospital scrubs carrying a newborn." She sat up slowly, fighting the pain. "They knew exactly who I was. This was a message." The baby monitor crackled with Elijah's soft breathing. Each tiny sound made Naomi's heart clench. How close had she come to losing him? Sleep proved impossible. As dawn broke, Naomi carefully dressed for work, her movements stiff and deliberate. Daniel tried to convince her to take more time off, but she refused. "If I don't go in today, it looks like they won me," she said, kissing Elijah's forehead before leaving. The FBI field office was unusually quiet when she arrived. Heads turned as she walked to her desk, but quickly looked away. Conversations died as she passed. The familiar space felt suddenly hostile. Her longtime colleague, Tom Riker, approached her desk with obvious discomfort. "Naomi," he said quietly, "can we talk? Privately?" They moved to an empty conference room. Tom closed the door and lowered his voice further. "This case is too hot," he warned. "There's pressure coming from upstairs to classify it as an unfortunate misunderstanding and move on." "Misunderstanding?" Naomi's voice was ice. "They set dogs on my baby, Tom." I know. Tom ran a hand through his hair. "But there are connections. Things bigger than a couple of racist beat cops. People are nervous about where this investigation might lead." "People inside the Bureau?" Naomi asked sharply. Tom's silence was answer enough. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Who's blocking it, Tom?" she pressed. "Give me names." "I can't," he said. "But watch your back. Some of the section chiefs. They're not happy about the publicity, the protests. They're calling it a powder keg." Naomi studied her friend's face. "You know something specific. What aren't you telling me?" "Just—" Tom hesitated. "Be careful what you document, what you put in official reports. Some things have a way of disappearing around here lately." He left quickly, leaving Naomi alone in the conference room. Through the glass walls, she could see her colleagues studiously avoiding looking in her direction. People she'd worked with for years, shared cases with, trusted with her life. Now they scurried away like roaches from light. Back at her desk, she began pulling files on recent corruption cases involving that precinct. Her arms ached as she typed, the bandages catching on her keyboard. Each record she accessed seemed to have irregular gaps, missing documents, incomplete witness statements. A shadow fell across her desk. Agent Carter. It was Deputy Director Phillips, his face carefully neutral. "We need to discuss your status." "Sir, I'm gathering evidence of a coordinated—" "You're on administrative leave," he cut her off. "Effective immediately. Standard procedure after a traumatic incident. Take some time, rest, let the internal affairs investigation run its course." "Internal affairs?" Naomi stood, ignoring the pain. "Sir, this is clearly a criminal." "That's all, Agent Carter." Phillips turned away. "Clear your desk. Security will escort you out." As she gathered her things under the watchful eyes of two security officers, Naomi noticed an envelope she hadn't seen before. Plain white, no markings, sealed. She slipped it into her bag without opening it. In her car in the parking garage, she finally broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper with typed text. "Drop it, or your baby is next." The paper shook in her hands. Not from fear, from rage. They had come for her son once. Now they were threatening him again. Through her windshield, she could see more protesters gathering outside the FBI building, their signs demanding accountability. News vans lined the street. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from reporters seeking comment. The threat note crumpled in her fist. They thought threatening Elijah would make her back down. They didn't understand. Threatening her baby had just guaranteed she would burn their whole corrupt system to the ground. The next morning, Naomi sat across from Carla Mendez in the attorney's cluttered office. Sunlight filtered through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across the mess of case files and coffee cups on Carla's desk. Naomi's hands trembled slightly as she passed over the crumpled threat note. Carla's face darkened as she read it. "This isn't standard police intimidation," she said, turning the paper over in her hands. "The timing, the specific targeting. This reeks of someone with real power." "What do you mean?" Naomi leaned forward, wincing at the pull of her bandages. "Think about it," Carla said, reaching for a legal pad. "Local cops don't have access to your hospital discharge schedule. They don't know FBI internal procedures well enough to manipulate them. Someone higher up is orchestrating this." Naomi nodded slowly. "The deputy director put me on leave immediately, called it standard procedure after trauma." "Nothing standard about it," Carla scoffed. "They're isolating you, cutting off your access." She tapped her pen against the desk. "What cases were you working on before the attack?" "Several ongoing investigations," Naomi said. "But there's one, a task force looking into police corruption. Specifically, unexplained wealth among certain officers." "Start there," Carla advised. "I can request Officers Donnelly and Taylor's financial records through legal channels. It'll take time, but—" "I already have them," Naomi interrupted, pulling out her phone. "I downloaded everything I could access before they escorted me out." She pulled up the files, spreading them across Carla's desk. Together, they pored over bank statements, property records, and tax returns. Officer Donnelly's modest police salary couldn't explain his recent purchase of a vacation home in Florida. Taylor had made several large cash deposits just under the reporting threshold. "Look at this," Naomi said, pointing to a series of transactions. Both officers received payments from shell companies on the same dates. The companies trace back to offshore accounts. Carla whistled low. "This is organized, professional, way beyond what beat cops could set up themselves." Naomi pulled up another document. "I cross-referenced the shell companies. They appear in other cases, all involving officers accused of brutality or corruption. And all those cases were quietly closed by the same FBI section chief, Alan Whitford." "Whitford?" Carla's eyebrows shot up. "I've heard that name. He has a reputation for handling sensitive cases. Always seems to find a reason why charges can't stick." Naomi's fingers flew across her phone, pulling up Whitford's case history. In the past 5 years, he's closed 37 police corruption investigations. Each time, the evidence mysteriously became inadmissible or witnesses recanted. "And now he's targeting you," Carla said grimly. "Why? What were you close to finding?" Naomi spread out her task force notes. "We were investigating a pattern of police protection rackets. Officers demanding payments from local businesses, especially in minority neighborhoods. But it went deeper. Drugs disappearing from evidence, weapons being resold on the street. The kind of operation that needs someone high up to keep it running," Carla finished. "Someone who can bury investigations, protect the officers involved. Someone like Whitford." Naomi's voice was hard. "The attack wasn't random. They knew I was getting close. They wanted to scare me off the investigation, make me look unstable." Carla studied the threat note again. This is his style. No direct confrontation, just pressure and intimidation until people back down. She looked up sharply. "How many other agents has he forced out this way?" Naomi was already searching personnel records. In the past decade, 6 agents have resigned or transferred after conflicts with Whitford. All were investigating police corruption. All cited personal reasons for leaving. "And those are just the ones we know about," Carla added. "How many others stayed quiet, took the hint, looked the other way?" The weight of it settled over them both. This wasn't just about one attack or one corrupt official. This was systematic silencing of anyone who tried to expose the truth. "We need to move carefully," Carla warned. "Whitford has had years to build his network. He'll have judges in his pocket, friends in the media, politicians he can call on." "I don't care," Naomi said firmly. "He came after my baby. That was his mistake." "They'll paint you as angry, unstable," Carla cautioned. "The traumatized mother out for revenge." "Let them try." Naomi's voice was steel. "Every attack makes them look worse. Every threat proves what we're dealing with." She stood, gathering the documents. Her injuries protested, but her spine was straight. "This isn't just about me anymore," she told Carla. "This is about everyone they've silenced. Every agent forced out, every victim intimidated into dropping charges, every family denied justice because Whitford decided their case was too inconvenient." "What's our next move?" Carla asked. "We follow the money," Naomi said. "Whitford's been protecting these cops for years. He has to be getting something in return. We find his weakness, we crack this whole thing open." She looked out Carla's window at the city below, where protesters still marched with signs demanding justice. "They thought threatening my son would make me back down," she said quietly. "They don't understand. Mothers are the most dangerous when their children are threatened. And lawyers are pretty dangerous too," Carla added with a grim smile, "especially when we smell a cover-up." A week after the attack, the streets of downtown erupted with the largest protests the city had seen in years. Eric Hall's video of the K9 assault had spread like wildfire across social media, igniting public outrage. Thousands gathered outside City Hall, their signs and banners dancing in the morning air. "Justice for Naomi. Protect Black mothers. No more police violence." Naomi Carter walked slowly through the crowd, her wounds still tender beneath her clothes. Daniel stayed close, one hand protectively at her back. The bandages on her arms were visible beneath her short-sleeved shirt. She hadn't tried to hide them. "Let everyone see what they did to her." "You sure you're up for this?" Daniel asked softly. His eyes were tight with worry. "I have to be," Naomi replied. Her limp was noticeable, but she kept her head high. "These people deserve answers." The crowd parted as they recognized her, voices dropping to hushed whispers. Phones came out, recording her presence. Someone started chanting her name, and others joined in. "Naomi! Naomi!" A tall man in clerical collar approached them, his presence commanding respect from the crowd. "Agent Carter," he said warmly, extending his hand. "I'm Reverend Samuel Briggs. Thank you for coming." Naomi shook his hand. "Thank you for organizing this, Reverend. Please, call me Samuel." His eyes were kind but carried deep pain. "There are some people I'd like you to meet." He led them to a group of women standing quietly near the steps. Their faces were lined with grief, their eyes haunted but determined. Samuel introduced them one by one. "This is Maria Thompson. Her son, Marcus, was killed during a traffic stop 3 years ago. Patricia Wilson, her daughter Shanice, died in police custody. And this is Beverly Jackson, whose grandson Tyler was shot in his own backyard." Each woman hugged Naomi tightly, their shared pain creating an instant bond. Beverly touched the bandage on Naomi's arm gently. "We saw what they did to you and your baby," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But you survived. You're fighting back. That gives us hope." Maria nodded. "They tried to bury our stories. The police, the courts, they all protected each other. But they can't bury yours. Because you're FBI," Patricia added. "They can't paint you as a criminal or say you're lying. Your badge makes them have to listen." Naomi felt tears threatening. "I'm so sorry for your losses," she said. "What happened to your children? It wasn't right. And what happened to me proves the system is still broken." "Tell them," Samuel encouraged, gesturing to the crowd that had gathered around them. "They need to hear your voice." Naomi looked at Daniel, who squeezed her hand supportively. Taking a deep breath, she turned to address the protesters. The pain in her legs screamed for her to sit, but she remained standing. "A week ago, I was walking home from the hospital with my newborn son," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "I had just given birth. I was tired, sore, but so happy." She paused, steadying herself. "Then 2 police officers decided I looked suspicious. They didn't ask questions. They didn't check ID. They just released their dogs. Angry murmurs rippled through the crowd. Naomi continued, her voice growing stronger. I'm an FBI agent. I've spent my career upholding the law. But none of that mattered in that moment. All they saw was a black woman they could hurt without consequences. She gestured to the grieving mothers beside her. These women lost their children to the same system. Their stories were ignored, their pain dismissed. But I promise you this, I will not be silenced. I will not back down. The crowd erupted in cheers. Samuel raised his hands for quiet. What do you want us to do? Someone shouted. How can we help? Stay peaceful, but stay loud, Naomi answered. Document everything. Share your stories. The system counts on our silence, on our fear. But together, our voices are too strong to ignore. Beverly stepped forward, taking Naomi's hand. We stand with you, she declared. All of us mothers who've suffered, we're behind you. The chanting started again, louder this time. No justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. Samuel addressed the crowd. This is more than one incident. This is about changing a system that treats our community like enemy combatants instead of citizens. Naomi scanned the sea of faces before her. Young and old, all races united in anger and hope. Her wounds throbbed, but their energy gave her strength. These people believed in her, trusted her to fight for them. I will use every legal tool at my disposal, she promised them. Every resource, every connection. The truth will come out. The crowd's response was thunderous. Daniel supported her as she swayed slightly, the pain and emotion taking their toll. You should rest, he whispered. Naomi nodded, but her eyes caught movement at the edge of the crowd. Through the sea of protesters, she spotted a black sedan parked half a block away. Its government plates marked it as an FBI vehicle. Behind the tinted windows, she could make out a man watching the proceedings intently. She kept her face neutral, pretending not to notice, but her mind was already racing. Someone was monitoring her, reporting back to Whitford. The game was escalating. Let's go home, she told Daniel, letting him guide her through the crowd. The protesters parted respectfully, many reaching out to touch her arm or whisper thanks. The mothers hugged her goodbye, making her promise to stay in touch. Samuel pressed his card into her hand. You're not alone in this fight, he assured her. Whatever you need, we're here. Back at the FBI office, Naomi waited by Tom Riker's desk. Her fingers drummed against the polished wood as she watched him approach, coffee in hand. His steps faltered when he saw her. We need to talk, she said quietly. Now. Tom glanced around the office, then nodded toward an empty conference room. Once inside, Naomi closed the blinds. That FBI vehicle at the protest, she said, crossing her arms. Who ordered the surveillance? Tom's face tightened. You weren't supposed to notice that. I'm trained to notice things, Tom. Just like you're trained to give straight answers to direct questions. He set his coffee down and ran a hand through his hair. Whitford's watching everything you do, Naomi. Every move, every conversation. He's got people all over this building reporting back to him. Why? What's he afraid I'll find? You need to drop this, Tom warned. The K9 incident, the protests, let it go. Whitford won't stop until... Until what? Naomi stepped closer. Until I'm scared into silence? Until my career is ruined? Or maybe until something happens to my baby? Tom's eyes widened. Has someone threatened Elijah? You tell me, Tom. You seem to know a lot about what's going on. He looked away, guilt crossing his features. I'm trying to help you here. Whitford. He's got connections way above our pay grade. Police chiefs, judges, maybe higher. Naomi pulled out her phone and showed him bank statements. Officer Donnelly received 4 payments of $5,000 each in the past month. Officer Taylor got similar amounts, all from a company called Riverfront Holdings, LLC. Tom's face paled. Where did you get those? I'm good at my job, Tom. Riverfront Holdings traces back to a network of shell companies. And guess whose signature is on the incorporation papers? Whitford, Tom whispered. Not directly, but his wife's cousin. Same address, same phone number. Sloppy work for someone so careful. She pulled up more documents. Then there's these. Meetings between Whitford and Police Chief Harlan Crow. Always off the books, always in private locations. But parking receipts, security cameras, they leave traces. Jesus, Naomi. Tom slumped against the wall. You've been busy. I'm not the only one looking. Carla Mendez, my lawyer, she's building a RICO case. Pattern of corruption, abuse of power, misuse of federal funds. You can't prove any of it connects to the K9 attack. Not yet. Naomi's voice hardened. But Whitford and Crow meet every Thursday at the River's Edge Hotel. Room 412. They think it's secure, but the walls are thin. Understanding dawned on Tom's face. You bugged the room. 2 days ago. Today's Thursday. She pulled out a small recording device. In about 3 hours, they'll have their weekly chat. Want to bet they'll talk about the black agent causing trouble? This is insane, Tom said. If they catch you, they won't. But I need your help, Tom. She met his eyes. You're one of the good ones. I know you are. But staying quiet makes you part of the problem. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you need? Cover for me this afternoon. If anyone asks, I'm following up on the Morrison case in Southside. Tom nodded slowly. Okay. But Naomi, be careful. These guys, I know exactly what they are, she said grimly. 3 hours later, Naomi sat in a service closet next to room 412, headphones on. The recording device was picking up every word through the hotel wall. The protests are getting worse. Crow's voice came through clearly. Your agent is becoming a real problem. She'll back down, Whitford replied confidently. They always do when it gets personal. The K9 attack was supposed to send a message. Instead, it made her a damn martyr. Then we send a stronger message. Whitford's tone was casual, as if discussing the weather. Break the black agent, restore order. That's what we do. The community's rallying around her. That reverend, those mothers. Let them march. Let them scream. In the end, the system protects its own. You and I both know that. Their laughter made Naomi's blood boil. She checked the recording quality, crystal clear. Speaking of protection, Crow said, the usual payment cleared? Of course. Riverfront Holdings, right on schedule. Keep your boys in line and everyone stays happy. Donnelly and Taylor are nervous about the FBI sniffing around. Tell them to relax. I've got the investigation locked down. No one's looking at their finances. More laughter. Naomi's hands tightened into fists as she listened to them brag about their corruption, their power, their certainty that nothing could touch them. After an hour, the meeting wrapped up. Naomi waited until their footsteps faded down the hall. She checked the recording. Everything was there. The payments, the cover-up, the explicit targeting of a federal agent. Her phone buzzed, a text from Carla. Did you get it? Naomi smiled grimly, clutching the recorder. Got you, she whispered, and typed back, every word. Meeting in an hour? My office. Bringing the U.S. attorney. This ends today. Naomi slipped out of the hotel through a service entrance, the recording secure in her pocket. Her wounds still ached, but adrenaline coursed through her veins. After today, Whitford and Crow's reign of corruption would finally start to crumble. She thought of Beverly, Maria, and Patricia, the mothers who'd lost their children, of Eric Hall, bravely filming the attack, of Reverend Briggs and the protesters demanding change. Most of all, She thought of Elijah, sleeping safely at home with Daniel. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about making sure no other mother ever had to shield their baby from police dogs. No other family had to bury their child because of corrupt cops. The system might be broken, but she had the evidence to start fixing it. One recording. Two arrogant men who thought they were untouchable. And a mother's determination to protect not just her child, but every child in her community. Karla's law office buzzed with energy as federal prosecutors pored over the recording. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Chen listened intently, her expression darkening with each damning word from Whitford and Crow. "The arrogance is breathtaking," Chen said, removing her headphones. "They didn't even try to hide it." Naomi sat straight, despite her aching wounds. "We have the money trail, too. Bank records, shell companies, everything." "This is textbook RICO," Karla added, spreading documents across her desk. "Corruption? Witness intimidation? Misuse of federal resources? And targeting a federal agent? They're looking at serious time." Chen nodded. "I'll file the charges tonight. Judge Harlan's court tomorrow morning. He's tough, but fair. Known for being incorruptible." "I've worked with him before," Naomi said. "He always follows the law, no matter who's involved." Later that evening, Naomi drove home with lighter shoulders. Street lamps cast warm pools of light on the sidewalk where, just days ago, police dogs had attacked her. The memory still burned, but now justice felt within reach. Daniel met her at the door, Elijah sleeping peacefully in his arms. "How did it go?" "Better than we hoped." Naomi gently touched their son's bandaged cheek. "The prosecutors are ready to move. Tomorrow morning, it all comes out." "You did it," Daniel whispered, pride in his eyes. "You actually did it." "We did it." Naomi leaned into his embrace. The whole community stood up. Eric with his video, Reverend Briggs, those brave mothers, everyone played a part. That night, for the first time since the attack, Naomi slept without nightmares. The next morning, the federal courthouse steps were packed with protesters. Signs demanded "Justice for Naomi" and "End police corruption." Reverend Briggs led prayers while mothers shared stories of loss and hope. Inside, Courtroom 3 hummed with tension. Naomi sat beside Karla, back straight, eyes forward. Across the aisle, Whitford lounged casually, as if attending a minor traffic hearing instead of facing federal charges. Judge Raymond Harlan entered, his black robes flowing. His stern face showed no emotion as Chen presented the evidence. "Your Honor, this recording clearly shows Section Chief Whitford and Police Chief Crow discussing illegal payments, obstruction of justice, and the deliberate targeting of Special Agent Carter." Harlan listened to portions of the tape, his expression unreadable. Naomi noticed him glancing frequently at Whitford, but assumed he was gauging the defendant's reactions. Then something shifted in the judge's demeanor. "Ms. Chen," he interrupted, "how exactly was this recording obtained?" "Through standard investigative techniques, Your Honor." "Agent Carter. Was Agent Carter authorized to place recording devices in a private hotel room?" Chen faltered. "The circumstances. Did she have a warrant?" Harlan's voice sharpened. "Given the imminent threat and ongoing criminal conspiracy." "Yes or no, Counselor?" Chen straightened. "No, Your Honor. But under Federal Statute 18 U.S.C. 2511, recording is permitted when I'm familiar with the statute." Harlan's tone grew cold. "I'm also familiar with the Fourth Amendment. This recording was obtained illegally, without proper authorization or judicial oversight." Karla shot to her feet. "Your Honor, the evidence of corruption is clear. The bank records alone were discovered as a direct result of the illegal recording." Harlan cut her off. "Fruit of the poisonous tree, Counselor. You know better." The gallery erupted in angry murmurs. Outside, the protesters' chants grew louder. "Your Honor," Chen tried again, "given the serious nature of these allegations, the serious nature makes proper procedure more important, not less." Harlan's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "This recording is inadmissible. All evidence derived from it is similarly tainted." Naomi felt the room spin. This couldn't be happening. Not after everything. "Furthermore," Harlan continued, "I'm ordering an internal investigation into Agent Carter's unauthorized surveillance activities." Carla's hand gripped Naomi's arm. "Your Honor, Agent Carter was protecting herself and her child from what, exactly?" Harlan's eyes were ice. "All I see is a federal agent conducting illegal wiretaps based on unsubstantiated suspicions. This case is dismissed." The gavel fell again. Protesters outside screamed in rage. Naomi sat frozen, staring at the man she'd once respected, the judge she'd testified before dozens of times, whose reputation for fairness seemed unshakable. Now he wouldn't even meet her eyes. Movement caught her attention. Whitford stood slowly, straightening his expensive suit. His lips curved in a small, knowing smirk as he glanced at Harlan, then at Naomi. In that moment, she understood. The rot went deeper than she'd imagined. Harlan wasn't just following the law. He was part of their corrupt network. Every case he'd dismissed, every piece of evidence he'd suppressed. How long had he been protecting them? The protesters' chants echoed through the courthouse walls. No justice, no peace. But there would be no justice today. Not in this court. Not with this judge. Naomi met Whitford's smug gaze, her hands clenched tight enough to leave marks. All her evidence, all her work, swept away with a few words from a corrupt judge. The system she'd trusted, the law she'd sworn to uphold, it was all tainted. Harlan swept out of the courtroom, robes billowing. Whitford's smirk widened as he collected his briefcase, victory written in every casual movement. Naomi could only stare, the weight of betrayal pressing down like a physical force. The judge she'd trusted had just revealed his true colors, and the price of that revelation might be her entire case. Naomi's key scraped in the lock just past 9. The house was warm, filled with the aroma of Daniel's cooking, his way of showing love when words weren't enough. She dropped her bag by the door, her movements heavy with defeat. "In here," Daniel called from the kitchen. "I made your mom's lasagna recipe." Naomi found him at the stove, sleeves rolled up, Elijah bouncing happily in his high chair. Their son's laughter, usually a balm for any pain, only reminded her of how much she had to protect. "You didn't have to cook," she said, kissing Daniel's cheek. "It's been a long day for you, too." "That's exactly why I needed to cook." He stirred the sauce, adding more oregano. "Takes my mind off things. Besides, someone was very insistent about helping." He nodded toward Elijah, who had somehow gotten tomato sauce on his nose despite being nowhere near the stove. Naomi managed a weak smile, reaching over to wipe their son's face. Elijah grabbed her finger, his tiny grip strong and trusting. The bandage on his cheek was smaller now, the scratch healing, but the sight of it still made her stomach clench. "Want to talk about it?" Daniel asked quietly. "Not yet." Naomi sank into a kitchen chair. "Just need to process. The judge, I trusted him, Daniel. I testified in his court dozens of times. And now, here." Daniel set a glass of wine in front of her. "Food first, strategy later." They ate slowly, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. Daniel talked about his students' history projects, about the community garden he was planning for the school. Elijah babbled and played with his food, occasional giggles piercing the heavy atmosphere. "Look at him," Daniel said softly. "He has no idea the world's not perfect." "I want to keep it that way," Naomi whispered. "But after today, I don't know if I can protect him from any of this. Hey! Daniel reached across the table, squeezing her hand. You're not alone in this. We protect him together. After dinner, they settled into their evening routine. Daniel gave Elijah his bath while Naomi cleaned up, the mundane tasks helping to quiet her racing thoughts. She could hear splashing and Daniel's playful voice. No, buddy, the rubber duck stays in the tub. By 10, Elijah was asleep in his crib, tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Naomi stood watching him, memorizing every detail of his face. Daniel wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. Come to bed, he murmured. You need rest. The crash downstairs shattered the quiet. Naomi's FBI training kicked in instantly. Get Elijah, she hissed, already moving. She grabbed her backup weapon from the bedroom safe as heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Daniel scooped up their son, who started crying at the sudden movement. Naomi positioned herself in the hallway, gun raised. Federal agent! Stop where you are! Two shadows appeared at the top of the stairs. The first lunged at her with something metallic, a pipe or crowbar. Naomi fired a warning shot into the ceiling, but the intruder kept coming. She dropped and swept his legs, sending him crashing into the wall. The second attacker tried to circle around her. Daniel shouted from Elijah's room, "Stay back!" Naomi drove her elbow into the first man's solar plexus, then spun to face the second. He was bigger, wearing dark clothes and a ski mask. He swung at her head. She ducked, ramming her shoulder into his stomach. They crashed into the hallway table, photos shattered. The first attacker was getting up. Naomi kicked his knee, heard something crack. He screamed. The second man broke free and ran, not toward the stairs, but toward Elijah's room. No! Naomi's scream was primal. She fired again, grazing his shoulder. He stumbled, but kept going. Daniel appeared in the doorway, still holding Elijah. He swung the solid oak changing table at the intruder's head. It connected with a sickening crack. The man dropped. Sirens wailed in the distance. The first attacker dragged himself to the stairs, leaving a trail of blood from his knee. Naomi kept her gun trained on him as he half fell down the steps. Daniel? Her voice shook. Elijah? We're okay. Daniel's voice was steady, but she could hear his rapid breathing. We're okay, baby. Look at Mama, Elijah. See? Mama's here. Naomi turned to check on them and froze. Elijah's crib was overturned, the mattress spilling onto the floor. A hunting knife stuck out of the wooden frame, embedded deep where her son's head had been minutes before. A note was pinned beneath it, the paper stark white against the dark wood. Last warning. The second attacker groaned, starting to stir. Naomi kicked his gun away and cuffed him with her backup set. Her hands were steady, but fury burned through her veins like acid. Red and blue lights flooded the street. Car doors slammed. Footsteps pounded up the stairs as local police responded to the shots fired. Naomi barely heard their questions. She stood in Elijah's room, staring at the knife, while crime scene techs photographed everything. Daniel sat in the rocking chair, their son finally asleep against his chest. They'd come into her home. They'd threatened her baby. Agent Carter? One of the officers approached cautiously. We need your statement. Naomi turned slowly, her voice ice cold. Book them on attempted murder of a federal agent, breaking and entering, assault with a deadly weapon, and attempted infanticide. I want their prints, DNA, everything. And get me FBI Assistant Director Marcus on the phone. Now. She crossed to Daniel, touching Elijah's curls with trembling fingers. Their son shifted in his sleep, completely unaware of how close it had been. Daniel caught her hand, squeezing tight. They're not going to stop, he whispered. No. Naomi's jaw clenched. But neither am I. They want war? Then I'll give them war. The knife glinted in the crime scene lights, a metallic promise of what these men, and the corrupt system behind them, were willing to do. But they'd made a fatal mistake. They'd threatened her child, and there was nothing more dangerous than a mother protecting her baby. The basement of Bethel AME Church smelled of old hymnals and coffee. Reverend Briggs had converted the Sunday school room into a makeshift bedroom, with cots for Naomi, Daniel, and a portable crib for Elijah. It wasn't home, but it was safe. "The Lord's house is your sanctuary for as long as you need it," Reverend Briggs said, setting down a fresh pot of coffee. His deep voice carried the weight of decades fighting injustice. "These walls have sheltered many who stood against evil." Carla Mendez sat at the folding table, legal papers spread before her. She hadn't slept either, her normally pristine suit wrinkled from hours of work. The attack changes everything. "We can file federal charges now. They'll bury those too." Naomi paced, her boots echoing on the concrete floor. Every few steps, she glanced at Elijah sleeping in his crib. Daniel had finally dozed off on one of the cots, but she couldn't rest. "Harlan proved the system's rigged. Then we go bigger." Carla shuffled through her notes. The judge's ruling was completely outside legal precedent. He had no grounds to suppress that recording. "Because someone's pulling his strings." Naomi stopped pacing. "The question is who?" The basement door creaked. Tom Riker appeared at the top of the stairs, looking nervous. "Can I come down?" Reverend Briggs nodded, but Naomi noticed his hand slip into his pocket, where she knew he kept a small pistol. After tonight's attack, no one was taking chances. "I've been digging," Tom said, joining them at the table. His tie was loose, dark circles under his eyes. "Following the money trail you found. It's bigger than Whitford, bigger than the department." "What did you find?" Naomi leaned forward. "Judge Harlan. He's connected to Senator Gerald Maddox. They go way back. Maddox personally recommended Harlan for the federal bench 15 years ago." Carla's pen scratched rapidly across her legal pad. "The Law and Order Senator? He's been pushing for increased police funding and harsher sentences, while protecting dirty cops," Naomi muttered. Classic misdirection. Tom pulled out his phone, showing them photos. "Harlan and Maddox meet twice a month at the Capitol Hill Club. Private dinners, no staff allowed. But look who else attended last month." Naomi's breath caught. The grainy surveillance photo showed Whitford slipping through the club's back entrance. "That's not all." Tom swiped to another image. Financial records. Maddox chairs the Senate committee overseeing federal law enforcement budgets. Every department that's been covering up corruption. Their funding flows through his office. Reverend Briggs leaned back, his face grim. "A perfect position to control who investigates what." "The shell company paying Donnelly and Taylor," Naomi said slowly. "Can you trace it to Maddox?" "Through 6 layers of corporations, but yes." Tom handed her a document. "His wife's cousin owns the holding company that controls it. They're laundering millions, drug money, protection payments, kickbacks from evidence tampering." Carla was furiously taking notes. "We need federal warrants. Bank records, wiretaps, those go through Harlan's court," Naomi cut in. "He'll warn them. Then we build it piece by piece." Carla's eyes blazed with determination. "Start with the attack tonight. Those men will talk to save themselves. If they live that long." Naomi's hand drifted to her gun. "Maddox has resources. Prison accidents happen." The room fell silent except for Elijah's soft breathing. Naomi watched her son, thinking of all the other mothers whose children had been hurt by this corrupt machine. How many cases had Maddox buried? How many victims had Harlan silenced? "Jesus!" Her voice shook. "This goes to the Senate. A sitting U.S. senator is running a criminal empire through federal law enforcement, and using that power to crush anyone who threatens it," Reverend Briggs added softly. Tom shifted uncomfortably. "Naomi, maybe we should back off." Maddox can destroy careers, families. They already tried to kill my son. Naomi's words cut like steel. There's no backing off now. Then we need a plan. Carla stood, pacing like a lawyer preparing for court. Maddox has 3 layers of protection. Dirty cops on the street, Whitford in the bureau, and Harlan on the bench. We have to crack all 3 at once, or he'll plug the leaks. And fast, Tom added, before they realize we know about the senator. Reverend Briggs poured fresh coffee, his movements deliberate. The community will stand with you, Sister Carter. When you're ready to move, we'll have thousands in the streets demanding justice. We'll need them. Naomi stared at the photos, memorizing faces and connections. But first we need evidence that even Harlan can't suppress. Something that exposes the whole network. The attack tonight helps, Carla said. It shows how far they'll go. If we can prove Maddox ordered it. He's too smart for that. Naomi shook her head. We need something bigger. Something that ties everything together. The drugs, the cover-ups, the bribes. Daniel stirred on his cot, blinking awake. He took in the scattered papers, the intense faces. What did I miss? We found the puppet master, Naomi told him. Senator Gerald Maddox. He's been protecting corrupt cops and judges for years, running a criminal empire through federal agencies. Daniel sat up slowly. The tough on crime senator? The one always talking about law and order? The perfect cover. Carla's voice was bitter. While he preaches about justice, he's selling it to the highest bidder. Naomi sank into a chair, the weight of it all pressing down. A U.S. senator. The layers of power and protection seemed insurmountable. But then Elijah whimpered in his sleep, and her resolve hardened. They'd tried to kill her baby to protect this corrupt machine. Now she would tear it down, no matter how high it went. The basement fell quiet as they absorbed the magnitude of what they faced. Dawn was breaking outside, pale light seeping through the high windows. Another day of fighting the system that was supposed to serve justice. But this time, they knew who really pulled the strings. The FBI press room buzzed with anticipation. News cameras lined the back wall, their red lights blinking like predatory eyes. Reporters filled every seat, smartphones ready to broadcast live. Naomi stood at the podium, her FBI badge heavy in her pocket. She wore a crisp black suit that hid her healing wounds, though she couldn't completely mask her limp. The physical pain was nothing compared to what she was about to do. Thank you all for coming. Her voice carried clearly through the microphone. After 12 years of service with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I am announcing my resignation. Effective immediately. Gasps rippled through the room. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. In the front row, she spotted Eric Hall, the student who'd filmed her attack. His face showed pure disappointment. The events of the past month have made it clear that I can no longer serve effectively within the current system. Naomi gripped the podium edges. When K-9 units were unleashed on me and my newborn son, I believed justice would prevail. I was wrong. Questions exploded from the crowd. Naomi raised a hand for silence. To the community who supported me, who marched for justice, I'm sorry. But I must put my family's safety first. She let her voice crack slightly. No mother should have to choose between justice and her child's life. In the back of the room, she glimpsed Alan Whitford smirking. Let him think he'd won. Let them all think it. Outside, she could hear protesters chanting her name. Their voices fell silent as her words reached them through the building's speakers. Signs lowered. Hope died. I will be making no further statements and ask for privacy during this difficult transition. Naomi stepped back from the podium, ignoring the shouted questions. Carla met her in the hallway, playing her part perfectly. Are you sure about this? She asked loudly enough for others to hear. It's over, Naomi replied, her voice hollow. They won. They walked to the parking garage, followed by the echo of disappointed voices. In Carla's car, behind tinted windows, Naomi finally allowed herself a small smile. "Did Hale take the bait?" she whispered. Carla nodded, starting the engine. "Called my office 10 minutes after I leaked that you were considering a deal. He wants to meet tonight." Victor Hale was Maddox's fixer, the man who made problems disappear with briefcases full of cash. He'd been untouchable for years, too careful to leave evidence. Until now. "Location?" Naomi asked. "The Capitol Grill, downtown. Private room in the back." Carla pulled onto the street. Tom confirmed Hale's regular table. "The restaurant's cameras have convenient blind spots." "Perfect." Naomi touched the small recorder hidden in her blazer. "How much is my silence worth to them?" Hale wouldn't say over the phone. But he mentioned retirement money. They drove in silence, passing groups of dejected protesters heading home. Naomi's heart ached, seeing their lost expressions, but it would be worth it. Sometimes you had to appear to break before you could break your enemies. The Capitol Grill was old-school Washington power. Dark wood, brass fixtures, and private booths, where deals were made over aged whiskey. The maitre d' led them to a secluded room in the back, heavy curtains blocking the view from the main dining area. Victor Hale waited alone, his silver hair immaculate, Rolex glinting as he stood to greet them. "Agent Carter, or should I say, Ms. Carter now." "Just, Naomi is fine." She shook his hand, noting his expensive suit, his practiced smile. The smile of a man who bought and sold justice like commodities. "Please, sit." He gestured to the leather chairs. "I took the liberty of ordering wine, a 2015 Bordeaux. I believe you'll appreciate it. I don't drink with strangers, Mr. Hale." His smile widened. "Direct. I like that." He sat, adjusting his cuffs. "Let's be equally direct, then. You've had a difficult month. My associates would like to ensure your future comfort in exchange for your discretion." "Discretion about what exactly?" Naomi leaned forward. The recorder pressed against her ribs. "Your accusations against certain officers, your theories about internal corruption, the alleged connection to Judge Harlan." Hale sipped his wine. "All of it needs to go away. Permanently. And if it does?" He opened his briefcase, removed a document. "A consulting position with a private security firm. Very generous salary. Full benefits. Plus a signing bonus to help with any medical expenses you've incurred." Naomi studied the contract. "This is a lot of money to keep someone quiet. Consider it compensation for your dedicated service." Hale's voice was smooth as the wine. "You have a young son to think about. His future education. His safety." The threat was subtle, but clear. Naomi felt her anger rise but kept her face neutral. "And my evidence?" "All copies handed over, of course, including anything your lawyer might have tucked away." He glanced at Carla. "We know about the recording you tried to submit in court. That needs to disappear. You seem very concerned about that recording." Hale smiled thinly. "Let's say certain conversations were not meant for public consumption. Chief Whitford was indiscreet. And Senator Maddox wouldn't want his name connected to any of this." The smile vanished. "I never mentioned the senator." "You didn't have to." Naomi pulled out a pen. "I'm not stupid, Mr. Hale. I know who really runs things in this town." He studied her for a long moment. "You're either very brave or very foolish to say that name." "I'm just being direct. Like you said." She tapped the contract. "So this buys my complete silence? About everything I've learned?" "Everything!" Hale leaned back. "Sign it, and you'll never have to work again. Your son will want for nothing. All you have to do is walk away." Naomi pretended to read the final page. "And if I don't? Then accidents happen. To careers, to reputations." His voice hardened. "To children. She forced her hand not to shake as she signed. The recorder caught every word, every threat. Hale's smile returned as he took the contract. "Welcome to early retirement, Ms. Carter." He extended his hand. "You've made the wise choice." Naomi shook it, meeting his cold eyes. "We all make our choices, Mr. Hale." The handshake sealed his fate, though he didn't know it yet. In her pocket, the recorder held enough to destroy them all. The taxi pulled away from Naomi's house as neighbors watched through their curtains. She'd made a show of loading suitcases, telling everyone within earshot that she was done with this corrupt city. Daniel stood on the porch, playing his part perfectly, waving goodbye with Elijah in his arms. Instead of heading to the airport, the taxi wound through back streets until it reached Reverend Briggs's church. Naomi slipped through the side door, where Carla waited with a burner phone and laptop. "The news is already reporting you've fled town," Carla said, handing her the devices. "Whitford's people are watching the airports." Good. Naomi settled into the church's small office, transformed into a temporary command center. "Let them think I'm running scared." Reverend Briggs entered, carrying coffee. "The basement apartment is ready. Nobody knows it exists except the original church founders. The hidden apartment dated back to the civil rights era, when activists needed safe places to hide. Now, it would serve justice again." Naomi touched the worn walls, feeling the weight of history. "Daniel will bring Elijah at night," Briggs continued. "No one will question a father taking his son to church." Naomi nodded, missing her baby already. But this separation was necessary. She had to appear completely isolated, cut off from support. Using the burner phone, she began leaving digital breadcrumbs, searches for offshore accounts, and cash transfers without detection, email drafts about meeting terms and payment locations, just enough to make it look like she was preparing to take the bribe. "How long until they bite?" Carla asked. "Not long." Naomi checked her watch. "Hale reports everything to Maddox. The senator's too arrogant to delegate this. He'll want to oversee it personally." She was right. Within hours, surveillance photos arrived from Tom Riker. Whitford had called an emergency meeting at Maddox's office. The trap was set. Days passed in the church basement. Naomi kept up appearances of being away, while carefully monitoring communications. Daniel brought Elijah each night, those precious hours giving her strength. On the fourth night, the burner phone rang. Hale's voice was smooth as ever. "The terms have been approved at the highest level," he said. "Cash payment tomorrow night. The senator wants to ensure everything is handled properly." "Where?" Naomi asked. "The Mayflower Hotel. Presidential suite. Come alone." "Perfect." The Mayflower's security cameras covered every angle. And the presidential suite's antique mirrors would make excellent recording spots. Naomi spent the next day preparing with Carla. They planted microscopic cameras and recorders throughout her clothing. Every word would be captured from multiple angles. "Remember," Carla warned, "once they hand over the cash, they're committed. That's when they'll be most dangerous." "I'm counting on it." Naomi checked her hidden weapons. "They'll want to gloat. Men like Maddox can't help themselves." Evening fell over D.C. like a heavy curtain. Naomi took a circuitous route to the Mayflower, watching for tails. The hotel's elegant lobby was nearly empty when she arrived. The presidential suite took up half the top floor. 2 armed men in suits flanked the door. Private security, not police or federal agents. They patted her down but missed the well-concealed recording devices. Inside, Senator Maddox sat like a king holding court. Whitford stood at his right hand, while Hale lounged on a leather sofa. A silver briefcase rested on the coffee table. "Ms. Carter." Maddox's voice dripped with false warmth. "I'm so pleased we could resolve this unfortunate situation." "Senator." Naomi kept her voice neutral. "I didn't expect you to handle this personally." Some matters require a personal touch. He gestured to the briefcase. Shall we? Hale opened it, revealing neat stacks of $100 bills. 2 million, as agreed. Tax-free, of course. Of course. Naomi forced herself to smile. And this buys your complete protection? It buys your complete silence, Whitford corrected sharply. About everything. Alan, Maddox chided. Let's be civilized. Ms. Carter understands the arrangement. Don't you, my dear? I understand perfectly. Naomi touched the money. This covers the K9 attack, the cover-up, Judge Harlan's ruling, and any other theories you might have developed. Maddox finished smoothly. Consider it a retirement package, in exchange for your discretion. Whitford pulled out documents. Sign these first. Non-disclosure agreements, very thorough. Naomi took the pen, making sure her recorders caught every word. And if I ever change my mind? Then the world is a dangerous place. Maddox's smile turned cold. Accidents happen. To former agents, to their families, to their infant sons. Are you threatening my baby, Senator? I'm merely stating facts. Like the fact that your son's daycare has very limited security, or that your husband's school parking lot is quite dark at night. The recorders caught it all. The threat, the menace in his voice, the casual way he endangered a child. Sign, Whitford commanded. Naomi signed, her hand steady. Each signature captured another federal crime. Conspiracy, witness tampering, extortion. Welcome to the private sector, Maddox said, pushing the briefcase toward her. I trust we'll never see each other again. No, Senator. Naomi stood, lifting the case. You won't see me coming at all. She left the suite, keeping her pace measured. In the elevator, she whispered into her hidden recorder, Got every last one of you. The evidence was perfect. Multiple recordings of Maddox himself threatening violence. Whitford on tape facilitating bribes. The money itself, marked and traced. Their own arrogance had finally brought them down. Tomorrow, everything would explode. But tonight, she'd let them celebrate their imagined victory. Let them drink expensive whiskey and congratulate themselves on silencing another voice. They didn't know that their own words had just destroyed them, that their threats and bribes were already being processed as evidence, that their empire of corruption was hours away from crumbling. Naomi stepped into the night, the briefcase heavy with their guilt. Justice had been delayed, but it could no longer be denied. The National Press Club buzzed with anticipation. Hundreds of reporters packed the main ballroom, cameras ready, laptops open. The room hadn't been this full since the Watergate hearings. Reverend Briggs stepped to the podium, his presence commanding immediate silence. Behind him, a massive screen dominated the wall. The air felt electric with tension. Today, we witness what one woman's courage can accomplish, Briggs began, his deep voice filling every corner. When they attacked her, they thought she would break. When they threatened her child, they expected her to run. When they offered millions for her silence, they believed she would sell her soul. He paused, scanning the crowd. They were wrong. Naomi emerged from the side entrance, walking tall despite her still visible scars. She wore her FBI badge prominently, a silent statement that she had never truly resigned. The room erupted in flashbulbs. Ladies and gentlemen, Briggs continued, I present to you Special Agent Naomi Carter, the woman who refused to be broken. As Naomi took the podium, her hands steady on its wooden edges, scattered applause grew into a thunderous ovation. She waited for silence before speaking. 2 months ago, I was attacked by police dogs while holding my newborn son. Her voice was clear, unwavering. That attack was no accident. It was orchestrated by powerful men who thought themselves above the law. Today, you'll hear their own words convict them. She pressed a button. The screen came to life with crystal-clear audio and video from multiple angles inside the Mayflower Hotel's presidential suite. Senator Maddox's face filled the screen, his casual threats about Naomi's baby echoing through the stunned room. Reporters frantically typed as the senator's own words exposed his corruption. The recording shifted to earlier footage. Chief Harlan Crow and Alan Whitford appeared, laughing about breaking the black agent. Their mockery of her pain drew audible gasps from the audience. "Notice the date stamps," Naomi said, pointing to the corner. "This meeting occurred hours after the K9 attack. While I lay in the hospital, they celebrated. The evidence continued mounting. Judge Raymond Harlan appeared in a recorded phone call, assuring Whitford that he would handle the evidence situation. Bank records flashed across the screen, showing millions flowing through shell companies. Social media exploded in real time. Justice for Naomi and corruption exposed started trending nationwide. Reporters were already broadcasting live updates to their networks. This conspiracy reaches from street level to the United States Senate, Naomi continued. It encompasses police officers, federal agents, a federal judge, and a sitting U.S. senator. They built an empire of corruption, protecting criminals while punishing honest citizens. She played the final recording, Maddox authorizing the $2 million bribe, confident in his immunity. His voice filled the room. Accidents happen. To former agents, to their families, to their infant sons. The audience erupted in outrage. Phones buzzed with breaking news alerts. Outside, crowds began gathering, drawn by the live broadcasts. "I am not their first victim," Naomi said, her voice rising. "But I will be their last." As if on cue, the screen split to show live feeds from multiple locations. FBI teams in tactical gear approached Whitford's office building. Police vehicles surrounded Maddox's mansion, lights flashing. Federal arrest warrants were issued 20 minutes ago, Naomi announced. Based on this evidence, a grand jury has already returned indictments for conspiracy, corruption, witness tampering, and civil rights violations. The cameras caught everything. Whitford being led out in handcuffs, his polished exterior crumbling. Chief Crow, attempting to flee through his building's back door, running straight into waiting agents. Judge Harlan, head bowed, surrendering at his chambers. Most dramatically, the live feed showed Senator Maddox barricaded in his study. He had barely finished shredding documents when his own front door burst open. To those who thought they could silence justice, Naomi's voice cut through the chaos, this is your answer. To every citizen who has suffered under corrupt power, this is your vindication. Reverend Briggs stepped forward again, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. The gesture spoke volumes, the union of legal authority and moral conscience working together to cleanse the system. Reporters shouted questions, but Naomi held up her hand. There will be time for questions later. Right now, justice is still being served. Watch. The screen showed Maddox being escorted out of his mansion in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face ashen. Decades of untouchable power crumbled in minutes. More arrests followed. Officer Donnelly and Taylor, the K9 handlers who attacked Naomi, were taken from their homes. Victor Hale, attempting to board a private jet, was intercepted on the runway. "Let this be clear," Naomi declared, her voice filling the stunned silence. "No one is above the law. No badge, no gavel, no Senate seat grants immunity from justice." The evidence kept playing behind her, an endless stream of corruption exposed to sunlight. Each new revelation drew fresh gasps from the audience. Reporters scrambled to cover every angle, every detail of the unfolding story. Outside, the crowds grew larger. People gathered around phones and tablets, watching history unfold. Cheers erupted with each new arrest. Years of pent-up frustration with systemic corruption found release in this moment of accountability. Protesters who had supported Naomi from the beginning celebrated in the streets. Their signs changed from demands for justice to celebrations of its arrival. The city pulsed with a new energy, the power of truth triumphing over corruption. In the press club, Naomi stood unwavering at the podium, watching the arrests continue in real time. Her quiet strength spoke louder than words. She had transformed from victim to victor, from target to triumphant. The story was far from over. These arrests were just the beginning. But in this moment, as the mighty fell from their corrupt thrones, justice felt tangible, real, undeniable. Inside the federal courthouse, the tension was suffocating. Every seat was filled, with observers packed shoulder to shoulder along the walls. The historic trial had captured the nation's attention for weeks. Naomi Carter approached the witness stand, her steps measured and confident. She wore a navy blue suit, her FBI badge gleaming at her hip. As she raised her right hand to be sworn in, her eyes swept across the defendant's table, where her former tormentors sat in prison orange. "Agent Carter," Carla Mendez began, her voice sharp and clear, "please tell the court about the events of May 15th. Naomi's testimony was devastating in its precision. She described the K9 attack in detail that left several jurors wiping away tears. When she spoke about shielding baby Elijah, mothers in the gallery openly wept. "And this was no random encounter," Carla continued, approaching a large screen. "Show us Exhibit 27. The courtroom darkened. Security footage played, showing Donnelly and Taylor receiving instructions from Chief Crow hours before the attack. Their casual laughter as they planned the assault made several jurors visibly flinch. "They knew exactly who I was," Naomi stated, her voice steady. "They knew I was investigating corruption in their department. They wanted to send a message." Whitford shifted uncomfortably as more evidence mounted. Email chains showed his systematic protection of corrupt officers. Bank records revealed millions in bribes flowing through elaborate networks. Each new piece of evidence tightened the noose. When Carla played the recording of Whitford laughing about breaking the black agent, his composed facade finally cracked. He stared at his hands, unable to meet the jury's disgusted glares. "And what happened when you tried to report this corruption?" Carla asked. "Judge Harlan blocked every attempt," Naomi replied, turning to where the former judge sat. "He ruled evidence inadmissible, dismissed cases, buried complaints, all while taking payments from Senator Maddox's organization." The prosecution displayed Harlan's financial records. Years of suspicious deposits aligned perfectly with dismissed cases against Maddox's associates. The former judge seemed to shrink in his chair. Chief Crow's testimony came next, his arrogance finally broken. Under Carla's relentless questioning, he admitted to decades of protection rackets, evidence tampering, and brutal retaliation against whistleblowers. "And who authorized these operations?" Carla pressed. Crow's voice cracked. "Senator Maddox. Everything went through him." Donnelly and Taylor tried to claim they were just following orders, but their own body camera footage betrayed them. The jury watched in horror as they deliberately targeted Naomi, ignoring her attempts to identify herself while releasing their dogs. "Look at your son," Carla commanded, pointing to Elijah's injuries in photos. "Look at what you did to an innocent baby." Taylor broke down, sobbing. Donnelly just stared straight ahead, his face a mask of defeat. The prosecution's masterstroke came when they played Senator Maddox's own words from multiple recordings, his casual discussion of bribes, his threats against Naomi's family, his decades of manipulating the justice system, all laid bare before the stunned courtroom. "This," Carla declared, her voice rising with controlled fury, "is what corruption looks like when it believes itself untouchable. When it thinks it can attack a federal agent, threaten an infant, and face no consequences." The verdicts came like thunderclaps. Whitford first, guilty on all counts. The former FBI section chief stood trembling as the judge sentenced him to 25 years. His badge was ceremonially cut in half. Chief Crow collapsed when his verdict was read. 20 years for corruption, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. As they stripped away his badge and medals, he openly wept, not from remorse, but from the reality of his fall. Donnelly and Taylor received 15 years each. Their fellow officers watched stone-faced as they were led away in chains, a warning to others who would abuse their power. Judge Harlan, having already resigned in disgrace, received 18 years. His judicial robes were replaced with prison garb, his gavel with handcuffs. But it was Senator Maddox's indictment that truly shook the system. Live cameras broadcast as the charges were read. Racketeering, conspiracy, witness tampering, civil rights violations. Decades of corruption finally caught up with him. His political empire crumbled in real time. Allies rushed to distance themselves. Donors demanded their money back. His own party leadership called for his immediate resignation. Through it all, Naomi sat straight-backed in the gallery, watching justice unfold. Each guilty verdict felt like another weight lifting from her shoulders. When the final sentence was pronounced, the courtroom erupted in applause. Decades of systemic corruption had been exposed and punished. The untouchable had been touched. Outside, thousands had gathered to await the verdicts. The steps of the courthouse were a sea of supporters holding signs, "Justice for Naomi," and "No badge above the law." Carla emerged first, raising her fist in triumph. The crowd roared their approval. Then Naomi appeared in the doorway, cradling Elijah in her arms. His face was healed now, showing no traces of that terrible day. The sight of them, mother and child, standing victorious where corruption once ruled, sparked something in the crowd. It began as a whisper, then grew to a chant that echoed off the courthouse columns. "Naomi! Naomi! Naomi!" She stood at the top of the steps, Elijah secure in her embrace as the chants washed over them. This wasn't just her victory. It belonged to every victim of corrupt power, every citizen who yearned for justice, every voice that refused to be silenced. The chants grew louder, carrying across the city like a promise. The system could be cleaned, corruption could be beaten, justice could prevail. The late summer breeze carried the sweet scent of jasmine across Naomi Carter's front porch. 6 weeks had passed since the historic verdicts, and life had settled into a gentler rhythm. The setting sun painted the sky in warm oranges and pinks, casting a peaceful glow over their suburban sanctuary. Naomi sat in her favorite rocking chair, the one Daniel had surprised her with, after they brought Elijah home from the hospital. The steady motion soothed both mother and child as Elijah cooed contentedly in her arms, his tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb. His face showed no trace of that terrible day. The small scratch on his cheek had healed completely, leaving only Naomi's memories of the terror. "How's my little man doing?" Daniel called from the grill, where the aroma of marinated chicken filled the air. He wore his world's best dad apron, a gift from his students when they learned about Elijah's birth. Steam rose from the vegetables he'd arranged in a grilling basket, and the domesticity of the scene made Naomi's heart swell. "He's perfect," Naomi replied, watching Elijah's eyes track a butterfly that fluttered past. "Getting stronger every day." Unlike her son, Naomi's own scars remained visible, raised pink lines along her arms where the canine's teeth had torn into her flesh. She traced one absently, remembering the burning pain, the desperate need to protect her child. But these marks no longer filled her with anger or fear. They had become badges of survival, proof of what a mother's love could endure. The porch swing creaked as Daniel settled beside them, wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. "Dinner's almost ready," he said, leaning over to kiss Elijah's forehead. "And you've got that look on your face. What are you thinking about?" Naomi smiled, reaching into her pocket with her free hand. "I got a call from the bureau director today." She pulled out an official letter, its FBI seal gleaming in the fading light. "They want me to head up a new anti-corruption task force. Full autonomy, hand-picked team, direct reporting line to the director." Daniel's face lit up with pride. "They'd be crazy not to put you in charge after everything you uncovered. When do you start?" 2 weeks, Naomi said, adjusting Elijah as he squirmed to get more comfortable. "They're giving me time to get everything set up, choose my team. Tom Riker already asked to transfer in, said he wants to work for someone who actually stands up for what's right." The mention of her former colleague brought a wave of memories. Tom had taken an enormous risk warning her about Whitford's surveillance, choosing conscience over career safety. It was a reminder that even in the darkest systems, good people could be found. "You know what this means, right?" Daniel grinned, taking Elijah so Naomi could stretch. "You're going to be these corrupt officials' worst nightmare. The woman who brought down a senator, now with even more authority to investigate corruption." Naomi watched as Elijah snuggled into his father's chest, tiny fingers clutching Daniel's shirt. "That's exactly what we need. Someone who knows their playbook, who's seen firsthand how they operate." She rolled her shoulders, feeling the pull of healing tissue. "These scars taught me something important. They're not invincible. No matter how powerful they think they are, justice can still reach them." The sound of children playing drifted from down the street, mixed with the distant bark of a dog. Once, that sound would have made Naomi tense, but not anymore. She had refused to let them take her peace of mind along with everything else they'd tried to steal. Daniel returned to check the grill, keeping up a steady stream of baby talk that made Elijah giggle. Naomi closed her eyes, letting the familiar sounds wash over her. Their home felt different now, not just because of the new security system or the reinforced doors, but because they had faced the worst and emerged stronger. The community had changed too. Neighbors who once merely waved in passing now stopped to chat, sharing their own stories of injustice and inspiration. Reverend Briggs had turned his church into a civil rights organizing center, using Naomi's case as a rallying cry for accountability. Even Eric Hall, the student whose video helped expose the truth, had switched his major to journalism, determined to keep shining light in dark places. "Earth to Naomi," Daniel called, pulling her from her thoughts. "Dinner's ready. Want to eat out here? It's such a beautiful evening." Naomi nodded, watching as he brought out plates loaded with grilled chicken and vegetables. The porch had become their favorite spot since the trial ended. A place to breathe, to heal, to simply be together as a family. As they settled in to eat, Elijah began to doze in his carrier beside them, tiny eyelids fluttering as sleep took hold. Naomi watched his peaceful face, marveling at his resilience. He would grow up knowing his mother's story, understanding that standing up for justice was worth every scar and sacrifice. The rocking chair's gentle motion matched Elijah's steady breathing as Naomi lifted him into her arms again. His weight felt like an anchor, grounding her in this moment of perfect peace. The setting sun cast long shadows across their porch, but they held no fear anymore. Naomi traced her finger along Elijah's cheek, her voice soft but steel-strong as she whispered, "They tried to break us, but we are unbreakable." Daniel squeezed her shoulder gently, understanding in his touch. Together, they watched the last rays of sunlight paint their world in gold. their home a fortress of love and determination, their future bright with the promise of justice yet to come. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.